Given the fact of how hot the internet was back when AOL was so hot, and 2020 is hindsight, but was that at the time, did that deal make sense to you to actually bring Time Warner and AOL and sort of bring Time Warner into this whole big world with the internet at that time?
No.
Okay. All right, but I'm just curious, why isn't that? It just goes to the. Is it because the culture is so hard to do? I'm asking really a bigger question, but I'm just wondering.
I mean, why did it not make sense at the time?
Yes.
Because it. You can't say because it made no sense, but it basically made no sense. The argument given for it was that somehow the content brands of People magazine or HBO, CNN, something, was going to go into the AOL subscription service. And if you remember, these kind of arguments you'll hear some of them this week in this other merger that we were talking about, where people would say, well, now the AOL service can have content from the content company that it owns. Or it would be the other side of the telescope. Now, the CNN or HBO service can have an outlet through AOL. Well, if you stop and think about either of those two directions, neither of them make any sense at all. This is before you get into execution or culture or anything. Something like People or CNN or Harry Potter has to go, by the nature of what it is, to all people through all avenues. That is the definition of an available content brand. And if it's on the, quote, internet, it needs to be available through every and all internet platforms. If you take something like an AOL or a Yahoo, there is competition there. What they compete on is the functional ease and quality of connecting you as a user to any and all content or things on the internet. So none of that, what I just said in either direction, has anything to do with rights holding, exclusivity, preferred access, or any kind of discriminatory presence for content through a distribution medium like AOL or Yahoo. And that's why it made no sense at all. Those were the main hype arguments. That was the definition of synergy that was used at the time. Now, if you look at it, it's pretty obvious that that doesn't, literally, it's almost nonsensical. The part that made theoretically some sense, there was a second argument, which was that AOL at the time was a narrowband phone-connected internet service. And it needed to get out of narrowband into broadband. And because cable TV systems have broadband, and they were just starting. The idea was, well, if AOL, the narrowband provider, buys a broadband cable company, it can then get access for AOL through broadband because you have to make a carriage deal, just like you would for CNN to get through. And therefore, AOL should buy Time Warner Cable and put itself through Time Warner Cable. And there were plenty of calls after the merger that somehow it should take the Roadrunner service at Time Warner Cable and merge it into AOL, and presto, you have some kind of it's a zebra with a horse on the back. So you stop with that and say, well, wait a second. If the thing here is to get AOL narrowband access to American broadband through cable, Time Warner Cable only owns 12 to 15%. So let's say you do that through coercion. We can order our divisions to do these things. What happens to the other 85%? What happens to Cox and Comcast and DirecTV? Are they going to do the same thing? Well, the answer became a fairly clear no.
Right.
If you went to a cable or a telco and said, you know what, we got a great idea for you. You should take your Verizon broadband connection, your Comcast broadband connection, and you should voluntarily fuse it to AOL. Not Yahoo, not MSN, AOL. For some reason, nobody can tell you, but that's what you should do. These guys looked at you and said, are you out of your mind? That would be like telling me I should carry HBO but not Showtime. I should put on TBS, not USA. That's ridiculous.
Right.
So on all those counts, this did not really make a lot of sense. What's amazing, and I think everybody ought to think about it, is how little scrutiny, if you think those points are fairly logical,
Right.
nobody had that discussion at the time.